WICR.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. All right, so it is March, and this college basketball fever all around the country, and we will be talking some March Madness. Now, before we start,
Well, Rob, last night,
yes,
basically Manhattan told us we weren't dancing for another year, and that's disappointing.
yes, it's hard to beat a team 3 times, so I'm not even gonna chastise anyone but Iona, they had a great season.
We didn't win though.
Unfortunately, just came up short in the MAC championship, but they shouldn't hang their heads. They just need to build off this and come back bigger.
Rob, remember we were talking about this earlier before. The last 5 minutes or so, it was roughly close entering the last 5 minutes, but then from my perspective, Iona just played very complacently. They were complicit with their turnovers, and their fouls. Dublin had 2 fouls in like a matter of 5 seconds. Calvin Amayo, he had like 2 straight turnovers, and David Laurie, taking a 3 when you got people under the basket. And I understand I'm not on the court, and I'm just a commentator, but from my perspective as a student of the school, when you got $800,000 on the line, I think that you have to put forward a better effort in those last minutes. I think that AJ English should have been playing. I mean, you got Evangelist Beebe, and I mean, he's one of my friends, but you should have had AJ in those last minutes. See if AJ could maybe pull off a 3-point miracle like he did in that game versus St. Peter's. Remember that? We were down about 6 points with a minute left, and we won that game. Okay. There's no reason we couldn't have done it there.
All right, but here's the thing. I said at the beginning we were going to say that to begin with, but we're not going to spend the whole segment.
No, I know that.
So now let's, I may, disagree with, obviously it's this point that they lost. But
yes,
you can't sit there and blame. These players are out there. They enjoy the game of basketball out there to have fun. Winning is great, but, you can't just put all the pressure on these guys.
But, Rob, that's where we differ.
Understand.
That's where we differ. Because do you understand?
Going out there just to win puts a lot of stress, and winning teams do not do that. They don't go out there, guys, don't have fun.
The New York Yankees did that in the 1990s.
Oh, guys, don't have fun. Just go out there and be
serious. The New York Yankees did that in the 1990s.
The whole point of sports is to have fun. If you have fun, you'll be able to win games.
No. That's for, in my belief, that's for Little League and perhaps JV and varsity in high school. But, when you come to Division I collegiate athletics, and, we aren't talking about a game, in January where no one's attending and, it's snowing outside. We're talking about the MAC championship. You got $800,000 online. Do you know what that could do for a school like Iona? Because for a school like Iona, basketball is what made the school by winning championships. And when you get on ESPN, when people fill out your name in the brackets, when they see your name, subconsciously they're thinking that Iona is more competitive, and it really raises the rank of the school. Now, as a student who cares about not only the basketball team but also the value of the degree in the college moving forward, I think that this is one of the most important ways and most accessible ways where we can actually improve our college. And what I would urge us to do is to put a larger emphasis on the basketball program moving forward. Rob, what are your views on this?
I mean, we're not going to talk about this all.
No, but, I just asked a question.
But, I'm still sticking with what I'm saying. These athletes aren't thinking, let's win $800,000. They're thinking, let's go out there and win and enjoy ourselves. Because remember, basketball is a game. It is a game. Even in the NBA, it is a game.
Yeah,
These guys have fun.
It's a game that has consequences for others at the school.
But the players, all right, you know what? We're not going to save this topic now.
No.
We are going to move
forward
to the NCAA tournament. Now, obviously, seeding hasn't been determined yet.
No.
But we're going to talk about our favorites, sleepers, Cinderella teams that might come out, So let's start with, the elephant in the room, Kentucky. They're undefeated. They have no signs of being stopped, even in close games when they were down. 18th ranked Arkansas, Kentucky just ran through them. I don't see how a team. I mean, obviously anything can happen, But I don't really see how any college team could beat them. Maybe Duke, maybe Virginia, but this could be Kentucky's year again.
Well, Villanova.
Villanova. Like I said, I have no idea. Seeding hasn't been determined yet, but anything can happen. Now there are certain teams that I think are a little slept on. For example,
Davidson,
yes.
Murray State, Wichita State, Northern Iowa.
Definitely. Although Wichita State lost the a tournament.
Indeed.
To Northern Iowa.
Indeed.
But once we figure out the seeding, I think it'll be a lot easier to determine. There's always an upset. 5, 12. Especially like in the 12 against the 5. But
Well, let's look at Manhattan in the tournament. What do you think of their chances?
I think because Manhattan didn't win the regular season title, they might be a 14 or a 13. I'll probably run. I don't know. I'm not a bracketologist. It's not really what I do, but 14 seed would seem right if they didn't win the regular season championship, but they won the tournament championship. And very rarely do 14 seeds don't beat 3 seeds. 13 seeds beating 4, that happens on occasion, but it seems like every year a 12 beats a 5. So I feeling that that's gonna happen again this season, in the tournament. So. Any other thoughts on the tournament or?
Well, obviously Kentucky, they're the team to beat moving forward.
Definitely.
I mean, what are they? 31-0 right now.
32-0, I think.
32-0.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of Villanova in the tournament. They're running through the Big East. I'm a big fan of Davidson and Murray State, and those schools that are really, they might be the Cinderella schools. We saw Stephen Curry's run with Davidson, and
we all can remember George Mason.
Exactly, George Mason. So every single year, you got a team, a 12, a 13, maybe an 11 or a 10, that really might make it to the Final Four, Elite 8, Sweet 16.
I mean, look at the tournament last season. Connecticut was an 8 seed and they won the whole thing.
Yes.
So that's one thing that's great. March Madness. It's March Madness for you. But we can't really get in depth with this tournament to figure out the seeding and who's playing who.
No, I mean that's why they played the games.
Exactly.
That's why they played the games. And that again, going back to the MAC tournament, that's why they played the games at the MAC tournament. Manhattan was 0-2. And on paper it looked like Iona was a better team, and they were. But again, that's why you play the games, to go see who's the better team. And Manhattan, they proved to be the better team in that game. And ultimately, like the MAC tournament, it's not based on your season or your prior record.
Definitely.
It's based on your merits for that day and your effort for that day. And the best dog that day comes out and advances. Survive and advance.
This reminds me of, I don't know if it was last season, 2 seasons ago, Kansas was one of the top seeds in the tournament. They were expected to make it to the championship and win everything, and they didn't do anything. Indiana last season, or no, 2 seasons ago, same thing. Memphis, the year they went undefeated when Derrick Rose was on that team, they didn't win everything. So, I mean, the only last time this really happened is Louisville 2 years ago. Louisville was a 1 seed. They were expected to make it, and they were expected to win the whole thing, and they did win the whole thing. But that doesn't happen a lot in college basketball, and that's why it makes it so exciting. We could have, another, Norfolk State beating Missouri, 15 beating a 2 again. We still have yet to see a 16 beat a 1. I'm kind of waiting for that, but it's kind of difficult to imagine, really. But so obviously the selection Sunday is this Sunday, I believe.
CBS.
Yes. Is it just on CBS or?
Yes,
CBS.
CBS.
And
so I guess that next week we'll be filling out our brackets on air, probably.
Nah, it's gonna take too long.
No. Next week we will have an on-air bracket special.
Next week is spring break, so.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. So, if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, we might post it, but we won't be doing it live on air.
So Iona, here's the thing about Iona: they won a regular season championship, so that might help a little in them going to the tournament. They might have an at-large bid, however.
But Rob, I spoke to.
No. Listen, I'm saying.
Okay, you talk.
All I'm saying, I'm talking about the chances they have at making the tournament. I'm not talking about the consequences or the circumstances to them losing, even though they're just college kids who are trying to enjoy the game. I'm talking about what the actual seeding is going to be. I don't know. If they make the tournament, they're not going to be a high seed. 15 probably at most. A high is 15. And if not, they're going to go to NIT. That's pretty much guaranteed. But so what were you gonna say? You know.
Well, I was gonna say, speaking to Jelani Dublin from the team, and Jelani said this was after the St. Peter's loss, the last game of the regular
I
season.
believe you mentioned this last week. Actually.
Yeah, well, just for people that didn't listen already, just to clarify the point, and this was before the MAC tournament began, that if we had won that game, we would have had an 85% chance of making the NCAA tournament without having to win the MAC tournament. Now, our chances are practically zero of making it because we lost that game. So I think that just points out the emphasis on games that you really don't think matter. 8 points really could turn out to be $800,000. Could turn out to really make a big difference in the advancement of a small school like Iona College. And, like we saw yesterday, for every single school out there except one, at the end of the day, they're going to have their hearts crushed. The season is going to come to an end just because of one loss, whether it be by 10, 15, 20, or just 1 point.
But don't assume that Iona was the only team to have a heartbreaking. Wichita State.
No, I know that. But
Wichita State was expected to run through the Ohio, Missouri.
I'm just
Valley
using it
Conference.
as an example, Robert.
All right, just saying. But I just have a feeling that, I think if they were told that $800,000 was riding on it, I have a feeling that if they were told that might have been the reason. You're putting too much pressure on these I shouldn't say kids are older than me, but on these guys in college who, the point. Do you want to know why athletes play sports? Do you want to know why? They play because they enjoy playing it. That's why. Winning, that's great.
No, they play to enjoy playing the game at T-ball. When you get to a certain level, whether it be in high school at varsity, you're trying to, in some instance, get money in the form of scholarships, or for baseball players or basketball players, play professionally the next season. In college, the same. Trying to maintain a scholarship money, or you're trying to go play professionally. And as a professional, you're trying to get your next contract.
Put it like this: if these guys didn't actually enjoy playing, they wouldn't be playing.
I know that, but
So then-
I know that, but there are other consequences to playing the game at a certain level than just enjoying it, especially for an institution where there are effects on other students that the game has.
Too much. I'm just gonna have too much pressure on.
Too much pressure. Okay, Rob. How about I put it in this point, in this aspect? If Iona won last night, the school would have had an extra $800,000 to do something. Maybe, perhaps, help accelerate the process for building a new arena. I don't know. Get better professors, or increase their advertising, or perhaps not raise the tuition as much as they might the next year. So what is that? An extra $500? Maybe. Let's say that $800,000 translates into them not raising the tuition as high by $500. So if everyone saves $500 a year because of a few baskets here and there, that makes a big, big impact on the school as a large. Makes a big impact on your pocket. Makes a big impact on my pocket. Makes a big impact on Benzino's pocket. So, right there, Rob, it's not just about having fun when you're at a certain level. That's for practice. It's about winning the games. As Herm Edwards said, you play to win the game.
However, playing to win the game, the teams that win are always the teams that when they play, they enjoy themselves.
Not necessarily.
Yes.
Not necessarily.
Okay, so you're gonna have a team of guys who are like, "Oh, we gotta play the game."
No.
They're not gonna win.
No, a team
They
of
have
guys
that
that are focused and not complacent.
They're not gonna win games if they have that.
Team that
attitude.
is focused and not complacent. Yesterday we saw in the last 5 minutes of the game an Iona team that was not putting out its full effort.
You wanna know why? Do you wanna know why teams get complacent at the end? Because they're not enjoying it anymore. At that point in the game, they were not.
Well, Rob, if you're a Division I athlete, you gotta push forward from the whole stance of, oh, I don't enjoy it. So if you don't enjoy it, you're just gonna, not play the game the right way and just play sloppily when everyone's watching on ESPN2 at night, prime time. No, come on.
I'm not saying that's why they should get complacent. I'm saying that that's
they gotta
what
move
happened.
forward.
I'm saying
they
that
gotta move forward
that's what
past
happened.
that mental obstacle.
I'm saying that that's what happened. I'm not saying that they should. That's what happened. If that was what they were thinking.
And as Division I athletes, they should be moving forward from that mental obstacle, because if they aren't able to, quite frankly, they shouldn't be on the court.
You know, your whole outlook on sports is just
No, it is not.
Yes, it is. Because if these guys were just worried about winning and not actually enjoying, they wouldn't be playing. They'd be in the military. They'd go to war.
No,
That's basically
Rob,
what you're saying. That's basically what you're saying.
Rob, look. The Iona College basketball team has a very different relationship to me than teams like the New York Yankees or the New York Knicks. Those teams, I'm not as enthusiastic about because it doesn't have a direct correlation to me as a person. The Iona College basketball team, on the other hand, is a part of the community that we're a part of, and thus, therefore, it has a direct correlation on us. It has a direct correlation on the improvement of the college, the advancement of our degree, what the school does, and how much the degree is worth 20, 30, 40 years from now when you're trying to get a new job possibly. And also, it has a lot directly to do with the tuition prices next year possibly. So Rob, right there, that's a reason to care about the outcomes of the games. Because ultimately, they matter.
Well,
no, ultimately they matter because they affect your pocket.
Maybe,
at the end of the day,
maybe
they affect your reputation as a student of what college.
Maybe the athletics shouldn't affect or shouldn't have this much of an effect on the school as much. Because if you're doing that, then you're basically taking the fun out of the game and turning it into a business. That's the problem with sports nowadays. It's a business.
Okay. It's not about reforming college basketball and amateur athletics because this is the nature of the animal that it is. And look,
unfortunately,
or fortunately, you know, people enjoy it. It's a form of entertainment. They're going to go to the best entertainer. That's why people are so enthusiastic about University of Kentucky.
But you have to actually think about the players too. You have to think about the way they perceive the game.
They're entertainers. They're performers. And that's what they were given the scholarship to do.
They're given a scholarship
to perform. They were not given a scholarship to enjoy the game. They were given a scholarship to help the team get better. Am I not right?
And having
because
fun
if they wanted to enjoy the game, they could have gone to the local Y.
So if sports is for fun, then you might as well just have robots playing out there. Then
no. What I'm saying, Rob, what I'm saying is,
that's basically what you're saying.
Rob, if you just want to play sports for fun, they go to the Tuesday nights at the local Y in January, February, and March. But if you want to go play the game for a purpose and for really winning, then, you know, come to Iona College, be a D1 athlete, or go to another school like Kentucky, because look, those kids at Kentucky, they're on a mission. They're on a mission.
And you think they're not enjoying that? They obviously are. They're not sitting there, you know.
But Rob, they're more focused on the mission than enjoying the game.
Well, if you do not enjoy the game, you would not be playing in college. You don't understand.
No, I do understand. Rob, enjoying the game.
These are not robots. Okay,
I'm not saying that. Enjoying
beings.
Rob. Again, think about yourself. Are you telling me that game does not have a direct impact on you? I just laid out the groundwork, the foundation, the fundamentals, to prove to you that it does. Right on your pocket.
Okay.
Next year and 40 years from now. Okay. Just think about that. And that is a reason for you to be upset with their effort in the last 5 minutes of the game. Yes,
I never said I'm happy with their effort. I'm saying...
And not just upset, saddened, and disappointed that they represent Iona in such a way.
But don't sit there and try to take these players and burn them at the stake.
I am not. They had a great season, but you need to move forward.
Exactly. Move forward. This is one season. We're only freshmen. We're going to have 3 more years here. Well, you're going to have 2 more years here, but there's other seasons. Okay, and
again, Rob, this was our season. We went 26-7 in the regular season. Next year, you're gonna have a Siena team that right now is young, but they have great players in Moore and Poole and Levant Lung. And who else do you have? You have Monmouth, you have St. Peter's, and you have Manhattan. Manhattan last year, look at their coach, Coach Mazzial. Coach Mazzial, they graduated 3 seniors that scored over 1,000 points last season. But now this season, they're winning the MAC championship again, and they're dancing right now. They got a great program there. So it's not just about the recruiting and the talent. And Iona has to bring in some of the better players. But that's just not the only thing. How are they going to strategically plan out how they're going to beat teams like Manhattan when it really matters? And that's what one of the ESPN commentators said last night. It's not about the regular season. That's nice, and that'll get you to the NIT. But it's all about making the big dance. And you have to win when it matters to make it. That's why the NCAA tournament is so special. So it's It's a fallacy to really think that next year you're going to be as strong a team. We have David Lloyd graduating. Player of the Year graduating. Who knows? Look, every single year you run the risk of a star player like AJ might get hurt. Isaiah Williams got hurt this season. Let's say that happens to him again. Or Shatter Kazmir. Or AJ English next season. What does that do?
Said that already, but
What does that do to the team? Exactly.
we can't read
exactly. So you aren't able to really go say, oh, we have next year. This was our time.
I mean, there is gonna be a next year.
Yeah, but who's to say that we're gonna be in the same place?
You're not. So you're gonna.
Who's to say we're gonna be in the same place, Robert?
So you're
Rob,
gonna
Rob,
spend the rest of your college career thinking about this one game.
No, I'm not.
So-
I'm not.
so
I'm
then-
just saying that it's a mistake to think that next season we're gonna be the same team
I'm not saying that
because it's not guaranteed.
when did I say that they're gonna be the same team? I said that
You're-
there is a season. I'm saying there could be a chance that they might.
You're
recruit
saying we
some
got
other
next
players.
season. Next season we might be at the bottom of the barrel. That's what happens in college basketball. Every single season.
We might be
is
at the bottom, we might be at the top. But what I'm saying is there's other seasons. We don't know what's gonna happen, but there's a good chance.
And
that
Rob,
they could be at the top.
again, before we spoke about the issue of recruiting. And look, I got a friend, Brandon Randolph, who went to Stepinac, and now he's over at the Master's School. He was offered by Manhattan. When he looks at the score last night, he was probably watching the game. When he's looking at the game, and let's say he has an offer from Iona, but he sees that Manhattan's going dancing later this week on Sunday, do you think that he's going to pick Iona over Manhattan?
You can't guarantee that man's gonna go dancing every year.
No, but
Plain and simple.
when they've gone dancing 2 straight years, beating Iona in the championship game, you tell me that he isn't more inclined or better persuaded to go over to Manhattan? See, again,
If
it's
you
not
look at
again.
recent history, but if you look at
Again.
historically, Ion is one of
Again,
the
so
best teams. in the
so even if you want to make that argument about we always have next year, this game still has an impact on next year because the recruits, the juniors in high school right now, they're going to be going to whatever team Iona lost to, based on today's game. So not only does it have an impact on this season, it has an impact on 5 seasons from now when the juniors in high school are seniors in college. It has a profound impact.
One thing I think you might be taking this loss a little too much to the heart.
No,
to be honest. Yes, you are.
no. You got
Yes,
to
you are.
no, because as an institution and as a member of the institution,
We would not be having this discussion if you didn't take the. We were supposed to be talking about.
you
the
have to
NCAA
think
tournament.
about it. You have to think about its implications. Just like if I was a member of the New York Knicks organization, I would be thinking about a playoff loss's implications as well. But I don't think the same way when I think of the New York Knicks because I'm just a casual fan. I'm not, it has no impact on my pocket. But the Iona College basketball team, how they perform, has an impact on your pocket as well as mine. And obviously we don't see face-to-face on the issue. And I think it might be time for a break. But that's just my stance, Bob.
So we went on this whole thing about and this whole thing about NCAA, how it affects institutions. We will touch on another topic involving that
Yes.
when we come back.